I'm Will Crawford, President and CEO of CXC Contracting. We specialize in foundation replacements, structural issues, house lifting, and helical piers. I look forward to working with you soon. Why is drainage so important in Southern California? The soil in Southern California has a lot of clay content in it. The clay expands and contracts. An example of that is the bottom of a dry lake bed where you see a lot of cracks. The wider the cracks, the more clay content you have in the soil. That cracking, that expansion and contraction is what causes the houses to move up and down and causes cracks in the drywall, causes cracks in the stucco, causes doors to swing without your effort. Signs, the cracking that people see most often are 45-degree angle cracks at the door frames or at the window frames. A long horizontal crack close to the ground on a slab-on grade is a very typical sign of water as the foundation, the concrete wicks the water up, causing the rebar to rust, which then turns around and expands and causes the cracking in the stucco. That's a common, very common question. What are the signs water is affecting your home? Again, cracks. Cracks are going to be the biggest sign that you have movement. Water causes movement. It also causes settling. We've all been in a living room where the corner feels like you're walking downhill, corner of a bedroom that feels like you're walking downhill. This is a sign of water issues. You may be outside taking care of your garden. You'll see cracks in the stucco. This is, again, just a sign that the earth is moving, is heaving and settling, and it's lifting your house and dropping it as the soils dry out. And this is what causes cracks. Why are gutters important? If you've ever talked to a soils engineer, they probably would have mentioned that they want any puddling to happen about 4 feet away from the house. If you've ever looked at your roof's eaves, they're only sticking out about 2 feet away from the house. If you imagine your roof being a big tarp catching all of this water, all that water is going to end up pouring about 2 feet away from the foundation. And if your soil is graded improperly, i.e. towards the house, then you're going to end up with water puddling next to the foundation, which is rule number 1. We don't want to have that happen. The gutters will capture the water, lead it to the downspout and away from the house. Ideally, it would be connected to the downspout, to the drainage system that we installed earlier, that we spoke about earlier. The importance, again, for the gutters is basically to keep the water away from the foundation. What is the difference between surface drains and French drains? I get this question a lot. The difference is that French drains are designed to capture underground water, and surface drains are designed to capture what soils engineers call sheet flow. The idea is to capture the sheet flow as quickly as possible before it has a chance to start leaching into the ground and going where we don't know where it's going to go. French drains, on the other hand, are designed to capture the underground water that you can't see, that typically come from uphill, and direct it to a sump pump that will then turn around and pump it out to the street. Unless you happen to live on a hill where we can use the grade to naturally drain the water out towards the street. Why would you need a sump pump? Physics, simple laws of physics. Water doesn't flow uphill. If we connect the sump pump to a French drain, the French drain is typically starting out at 2 feet below ground. And for every foot that we have to dig, we have to go a 1/4 inch lower. So if we dig a trench all the way around your house and it's 140 linear feet times a 1/4 inch, we're going to end up at 4 or 5 feet below grade. We have to get that water below the ground out to the street, which then turns around. We grade it towards the sump pump, where the sump pump will turn around and pump it out to the street for you. What is the difference between normal settling and abnormal settling? Normal settling is expected when a house is first built within the first year or two. The structural engineers that have designed the house expect about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of settling within the first couple of years. After that, you shouldn't have any more settling. Abnormal settling is when you start feeling slopes in the floor. Your doors might bind, your windows might not shut tight. You'd see molding, floor molding, gaps between the floor and the molding. That's abnormal settling. With the abnormal settling, again, comes cracks in the drywall, cracks in the stucco. These are indications that your house is moving more than it should be, and you should be giving us a call for this. Is there anything you can do about sliding backyard hillsides? The answer is yes. Typically, it involves hiring a soils engineer to come out and dig some test pits, analyze the soil, and come up with a solution that usually involves installing caissons. Caissons require a drill rig to come out, dig a deep hole about 20 feet, 15 feet, 30 feet, whatever the soils engineer determines, and fill in it with a bunch of concrete. This will help hold the hillside and keep your house from moving laterally. When is a soils engineer needed? Anytime you do anything more complicated than just replacing a foundation, you'll need to bring out a soils engineer to dig a test pit and analyze the soils that we're digging into. When you're installing caissons that are going to go down 15, 20, 30, 50 feet, they want to know what's down there. What's the caisson going to be loading on, bearing on? Same with helical piers. If we're going to drill helical piers 12 to 15 feet down, 20 feet down, they want to make sure that the soils are going to be strong enough to hold the caissons and the helical piers. When is a crack more than just a superficial crack? Typically, when you're looking at a crack in concrete, you want to make sure that the crack is 1/4 inch or less. Anything larger than that typically requires injection of epoxy into the crack and then some sort of strapping across the crack to immobilize the concrete from moving that otherwise would happen within that crack. What signs indicate it is time to replace the foundation? This is a great question. There's a lot of things that will indicate it's time to replace the foundation. Age is the #1 reason to replace concrete or the foundation. Concrete is expected to last about 100 years. So if you're in that 90, 100, 110-year time frame, it may be time to replace the concrete. You'd have to call us to come out and inspect to see the condition of the concrete. But if you're just looking at it yourself, trying to figure out if you want to replace it, you could look for spalling, which is when the aggregate inside the concrete is exposed. You can look for efflorescence, which is a sign that water is trying to get into the foundation. Not that that's a sign that the concrete needs to be replaced, but it is an indication that it's wearing the concrete out more than the average lifespan. Lots of cracks. If you didn't have the drainage system installed and you had a lot of movement, you could have more cracks than the foundation or the house could handle, and you should probably consider replacing the foundation at that time. What are helical piers? Helical piers, I like to tell people that they are very much like an auger bit. Imagine an auger bit where you're drilling a hole into the ground, setting a fence post, and the auger bit is pulling up all this dirt, creating a hole in the ground. A helical pier is very much like that, with the exception that the helices are split, allowing dirt to pass through, not bringing dirt up. What this does is it allows the helical pier to drill itself down into the ground to where we want it, typically at bedrock. Once the helical pier itself is installed, we can attach a bracket under the foundation, which then gets attached to the helical pier. Once these are connected, we can then put a hydraulic jack on the bracket and start lifting your house back to level.
Rolling and action.
Earthquake retrofitting, why is it important? What is it? Why is it important, and what are the benefits?
Okay, we're gonna
Try it again.
Ready?
Yep.
And action.
Earthquake retrofitting. What is it? Why is it important? And what are the benefits? Earthquake retrofitting is adding additional bolts to hold the house onto the foundation. Engineers and city officials realized after the Northridge earthquake that the existing bolting code was inadequate and houses were walking off the foundation. They also realized that with this walking off the foundation, that the most expensive repairs made were from flooding from the pipes, water pipes getting disconnected, and the gas and electric lines causing fires from being pulled apart. So the engineers and the city officials said, let's double up on the bolting standards. So retrofitting comes in, we come in and we'll double up the number of bolts holding the house onto the foundation. This doesn't guarantee that you're not going to get cracks in the house. The house is going to continue to sway during an earthquake, but if you can keep the house on the foundation, you'll prevent the flooding and the fires that cause the most destruction in an earthquake. Do you need a permit? Why and when? The answer is yes. You need a permit anytime the scope of work exceeds $500 in price. The why is to make sure that the work that's being done is being done properly. Not so much that the inspectors are trying to come in looking for something to gig you on, but they want to make sure that the work that's being done is being done according to the plans, to the engineer's specifications. This should be done every single time you do a job, again, over $500, or if it's involving a contractor versus yourself.
Perfect.
All right.